Hey everyone, how we doing today? This is James Sweeney, aka SplitSuit, and welcome back to another video. And as part of the Ask SplitSuit a Question series, a couple of people did ask hand history questions, and this one actually came privately via Facebook. And Jurgen prefaces the hand by saying, "Hi SplitSuit, could you explain the poker math on the turn when considering a raise? I know the preflop was misplayed, but can you explain it anyways?" Okay, so this hand is from an online MTT, blinds are 75-150. Folds around, Hero decides to limp, and again, Hero said that he knows he misplayed preflop, but I am still going to go over it just real quick. We don't want to open limp here. This just makes no sense. We definitely want to be raising if we're going to be entering most pots, and this would definitely fit the bill. So just raise this to something like 350, 375, and play poker from there. This is definitely not what we want to be doing. But as played, we end up going heads up against the big blind, go here. Hero decides to bet, Hero gets called, Hero goes to turn, and he faces a donk bet of 300 and decides to raise. So let's look at the mathematical thought process when looking at the turn raise here. Okay, so to start, let's actually just back up one quick tick and talk about what goes into this. So the first thing I'd ask myself is, if I raise, am I committed to the pot? And whether we raise here to something like 600, 900, 1340, whatever it is, we're going to be committed, right? If we raise and he shoves, we're snapping it off. If we raise and he calls, we're getting in on most rivers. So when I make a raise here, it's done with a commitment thought process. And it's really important to understand when your raise is committing, and oftentimes that's going to be either like an SPR decision or simply a pot committed decision, or maybe it's just based upon your exact opponent. You say, okay, if I raise here, I'm committed to the pot. Whatever it is, just understand that if you're raising based upon the size you're going to choose, especially, understand whether or not you're committed to the pot. If we do raise here, we are committed, which means that we can pull out my two favorite poker tools and get started. One is the fold equity calculator, the other is Equilab, and all we have to do is plug in a couple of quick numbers. So in order to fill out the fold equity calculator, just need a couple quick things. The effective stack, what we're going to be effectively shoving for, is 2475. And again, it's an effective shove. Even if we do only go to, say, 1340 like Hero did here, this is a situation where, again, if he shoves, we're snapping it. So we're committed in this spot. So in order to effectively stack here, it's going to be 2475, because he is the effective stack plus his $300. That's how much we're risking. The pot size right this moment is 1125, facing a bet of 300, and the last thing we need is our estimated equity, which we can get from Equilab. So because we're running this with a commitment mindset, what we can do is pull out Equilab, plug in our hand, plug in the board, and plug in the range of hands that we think villain would get here with, and of course stack off with. So in this situation, let's give him kind of worst case, so 8s, 6s, deuces. Let's just say that he would have played it like that, both pre-flop and on the flop. And let's say that he could have top 2 pair. That certainly makes sense, although there won't be a ton of combos because we have 2 7s in our hand. And let's give him what? What makes the nuts? So 10-9, 10-9 off. Let's give him anything else reasonable? 45 maybe? Sure. Okay, we give him 45 both on and off and go from there. So this would definitely be a worst case range. Notice that we have 36% equity. Plug that in here. Good. Calc it. And notice that we need him to fold at least 26% of the time. Well, that's assuming, of course, that he would get to the turn with all of those straight combos. And mind you that the 10-9 is a gut shot and the 4-5 is a gut shot. So does he really have all of them? Maybe, maybe not. So maybe we go in here and we nuke out the offsuit combos just to kind of buff it out a little bit. Notice that our equity is going to go much, much higher. If we run it all back real quick, plug everything back in, 125, 300, and instead of the lower equity, let's say we do have this 53% equity, and calc it, notice that we're just fine. So again, what you really asked here is, how do we proof it mathematically? How do we look at this situation from a mathematical point of view? This is how you do it. You decide, okay, if I'm raising, am I doing so with a commitment mindset? If so, then I can just use the fold equity calculator, go forward from there. And in a lot of situations where you're going to be raising with things like sets or straights or maybe smaller flushes, those kind of things, this is exactly how you would solve it. So in this exact situation, Hero decides to raise, ends up getting shoved on, obviously snaps it off just like he should, and unfortunately ends up running into 9-5. So the fact that he did end up having 9-5 off means that all the other offsuit combos were still there as well. So 10-9 off would be in there, 45 off would probably be there. And then we really can't be too shocked about that. But again, this all kind of boils back to the fact that we misplayed preflop, and that wasn't your real question, but I'm still going to harp on it nonetheless because I think it's important that we don't make that mistake preflop ever again. But as played, this is how we would proof it mathematically. Again, if you disagreed with the range that I assigned, then all you would do is go into Equilab, plug in the range that you think villain would get there with and have when he stacks off, and then make decisions from there. So if you thought he would have like dominated 2 pair and that kind of stuff, like 8 deuce and 7 deuce and 6 deuce and all that kind of stuff, then all of a sudden your equity is definitely going to do some other fun things. So at least keep that in mind when you're building this range out, and again, looking at things from a mathematical point of view. So Jurgen, thanks for the great hand, and if you or anyone else has a poker related hand or question, feel free to leave it on our Google Plus page. I'll leave a link for that in the description box, and also please make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this type of video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, good luck out there and happy grinding.